OPL here. We've got so many sweet matches coming up tonight. I am Julian at Time Card. Joining me will be Christopher Papa Smithy Smith. And Papa, I'm so excited for today's round of OPL matches.
Yeah, today the OPL jumps to patch 5.3, and I don't know about you, Pastry Time, but I'm super excited to see if a certain lightning chipmunk returns to the top one.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things opening up there as well. It's going to be a pretty fun patch. We've already seen what the players can do on the odd one. It's kind of cool to see a bit of an upgrade.
Yeah, jumping a couple of balance changes. Not sure if we're going to see too much Azir play with some of the adjustments on 5.3, but the pros will show us the way, and maybe we'll see some exciting new things with this new patch.
Yeah, and that's one of the nice things about OPL. Often, at the forefront of a lot of the changes when the client does get updated, so we'll see what happens there. But before we do, let's check out our results from the last day there as well. Last week, of course, on Thursday, Immunity versus Legacy. So a pretty tough one there, but Legacy took it out, and then Dial's continuing unbelievable form so far, getting their win against Legacy.
And Fortnite were desperate to pick up their first win against Immunity first, and then against the Dials. Couldn't manage it. 0-6 on the season so far, so still struggling. There's still plenty of time to pick up that big first win.
Yeah, we're almost 3 weeks through now as well, so some of the teams starting to move and shake a little bit, and it's nice to see, Dial still looking strong. Legacy, after that one loss, shaking it off. Strong results there last week. Even Immunity starting to pick things up as well. Look like a very strong side again.
Yeah, we're going to move to the schedule for this week very soon. The Chiefs are going to be in play. They're up the top. They're going to look to try to solidify a big lead, but the teams behind them, they're going to start catching up.
Yes, let's have a look at today's matches there as well. Of course, we're going to finish out the second day of this round as well. Our first match, of course, Rich Gang, the Upstarts versus Chiefs, should be one hell of a match, and the Chiefs will then play again against Avant.
Yeah, Sudden Fear will take on the Rich Gang in Game 3, and we'll finish it off with Avant and Sudden Fear for the night.
Yeah, and again, should be great matches here. This first one going to be interesting, and the Chiefs looking to potentially go 6-0 in the first 3 weeks of OPL.
Yeah, it'd be a big jump for them. If they could get to 6-0, especially with the Direwolves snapping at their heels. They've bitten off the challenge of Legacy and the Direwolves already. So they're just trying to open up that little advantage at the top.
Yeah, and the nice thing for Chiefs is that if they continue on, they've already picked up, as you said, those wins are in, I think, both cases actually against the top two teams there with the Wolves and Legacy, so can really open things up. And the other teams there as well, Legacy especially, they're trying to open up and keep up in second place.
Absolutely. And if you want to discuss today's happenings, stream happenings, anything interesting comes up, please jump onto Twitter and use the hashtag IamOPL.
Yeah, we'd love to see what you guys are doing as well. Get that hashtag going, whether it's how you're watching the game, what you're doing, the plays that you like, the players that you're looking at, the teams you're cheering for, whatever it is. We'd love to get your thoughts over on Twitter as well. So make sure you get those thoughts out and let us know who you think is going to win these games. Because again, it's going to be a really tight day of competition.
Yeah, the Chiefs will come in heavy favorites for their games, but I think anything could happen in the last two. Really going to be exciting to see how the standings kind of move as today progresses.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you want to check, of course, the standings, or if you missed some of the games come up last week as well, go over to oce.lolesports.com. You can get all of your VODs, schedule, standings, and much more there as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of information on there. There's a lot to pass because we are already in round 3. We're going to finish off round 3. Every team will have played 6 games by the end of today, so catch up on that schedule. It's going to be exciting.
Yeah, and that's one of the nice things as well, kind of getting through the rest of the teams over on this Monday. We're going to get, a good picture of the standings by the end of it. And, it's not the longest season as the OPL, but 3 weeks in is, pretty significant. 6 games played by every single team. We'll start to see, can the Chiefs stay undefeated, or is it going to get a little more crowded up towards the top?
Yeah, we're almost at the halfway point. Of course, there's 8 teams, so every team will play 7 matches before they start the reverse matches coming through. So, of course, round 4 is going to be the first time we see those reverse games from the start of the season. So just going to finish off those standings and get really a good idea halfway through the split who's the teams to look at.
Yeah, but moving into this matchup now as well, of course, I'll open up Rich Gang versus Chiefs. Rich Gang, probably the strongest looking qualifying team. They weren't seeded in. They weren't one of the top 4 teams that automatically got through. Chiefs, of course, coming through very strong as a seeded team, but Rich Gang looked very good.
Yeah, and Rich Gang definitely, they're building up their profile on social media. They're getting very known in the community. And the Chiefs, they're all about results, especially from the start of last year and previous. They were always the top placing Oceanic team. The Rich Gang definitely trying to just push their knowledge and get out there in the community.
Yeah, and I think this matchup, when we look at it, has to come down to the junglers here as well. Spooks versus Huey there coming through for the jungle matchup. Both these players do so much for their teams. We'll start here with Spooks. He's had one hell of an OPL showing so far.
Absolutely. 4 games, 4 wins, averaging 8 KDAs, so kills and assists over death. That's a massive kill involvement. He's really been proactive in a lot of lanes, and we've also seen him kind of move between the Lee Sins and even the Rek'Sais of the world, with that really ganking high-pressure jungler and Lee Sin, and then a bit more split pushing and kind of map control coming out of the Rek'Sai.
Yeah, and I think, like is the case for a lot of junglers, when you're doing what you want, in your jungle and in the enemy jungle, you really dictate early game. And I feel like the Chiefs are a team that really, needs Spooks to kind of be a barometer for them, because if he's getting aggressive moving forward, and he's looked great in these games. The Chiefs just look like the same team we've seen maybe a year ago.
Yeah, he's the paragon of their proactive play. The Chiefs have always looked to be proactive. That's why in those games against Legacy and Direwolves, they've been the ones on the front foot. They've been making things happen, and that's why they're winning these kind of tough games against top opposition. And absolutely, Spooks is the one to look out for as the jungler, as the one who, comes out of the darkness. Not so much Nocturne play, but comes out of the darkness. He's the one that makes things happen. He's been so consistent so far in their success.
Yeah, and I think consistency is a great word for it there as well. Because if we look on the other side here for Rich Gang's Huey, he's had some great games and then some not great games. That is an amazing deviation in KDA.
So there was a bit of a standard information. We knew about the 8 KDA coming out of Spooks. We jumped to Huey. In those victories, a 12.76 KDA, a massive KDA in the wins, but look at the big difference. Over 10 points of KDA difference between the 2 wins and the 2 losses, which tells me one thing. It tells me, man, when he gets going and when Rich Gang get going, they get their skirmish on, they start picking up those dragons like we talked about in previous story points. Very, very strong is Huey, and very, very strong a Rich Gang. But if he's undone, if they kind of start losing that early game, if the skirmishes don't go their way, Huey and Rich Gang both struggle.
And that's the thing. Rich Gang, we described them as an aggressive team. They love to really snowball, get things going, and get control of the dragon, get those kills in lane, and then go from there. The Chiefs look quite flexible so far early on in the OPL. Look like a team that can adapt and loves to play their way no matter what they draft here. But if any team's going to look for an upset here, kind of moving, I guess, your qualified teams into your seeded team, it might just be Rich Gang against Chiefs.
I think Rich Gang are really looking forward to this game. It's going to be a big platform. A lot of people are going to be watching, and it's the top opposition for them to face, at least going off the standings starting today. So a lot to prove. I think Rek'Sai is going to be the big one to me, Paysham. I think that's the champ. It's going to be highly contested. If she comes through to Huey's hands, I think anything's possible.
Well, we'll have to see what happens. We are into champ select, of course. Rich Gang over on the blue side for this best of one. Chiefs are going to be over on the red. And Sion, Annie, Cassidy in the 3 bands there for Rich Gang. Rek'Sai, Lissandra, you mentioned it.
Yeah, we actually saw the start of the Sion bans in 5.2 towards the end of last week. People were respecting that Sion pick. The banning continues on 5.3, but yes, the Rek'Sai, we won't see her in action today.
Yeah, not super surprising. Huey looked very strong on that champion when he played it in the last week, so no surprise there. I do like the respect ban almost to swipe it there as well. He's looked very strong on that champion. Chiefs seem to really play well around it, but the last ban there, another jungler gets hit. The Chiefs ban out Vi for their third.
Yeah, there's starting to be quite a few of the popular picks taken away. Rek'Sai and Vi have been basically locked in every time they're available. But look who this opens up. It's going to be the instant lock of Kalista for Rich Gang.
Yeah, and we've talked about this a lot when we mentioned Rich Gang. They're very confident in their drafting. They have a strategy. They want to execute. When they execute, like we mentioned with Huey's KDA, they go off in a big way when they're winning. So Kalista, a really strong pick there for Dayshift.
But I actually really like the fact that, look, they see the Vi ban. This is Vi banned away by Chiefs. They basically opened up a hypercarry like Kalista to be a very valid pick. You don't need necessarily the Kalista Morgana, in one pick phase. You can go for that hypercarry and know that one of the major tools at dealing with that Kalista is already gone away on the ban list.
Yeah, going to be curious to see what the Chiefs want here as well. We'd have, of course, classically seen Ari getting snapped up in the last patch, but she's been changed a little bit. Still very strong, still a big Swiffer champion, but not the same Instalock. And instead, the big tanky combo to kick things off, Jarvan and Maokai, the first 2 picks.
I mean, it kind of makes sense, right? You go for that hypercarry, you go for someone that wants to spread that damage and get into the back line. You pick the strongest damn front line you can to try and deal with that Kalista. I do like the picks. The Ari you mentioned earlier, and maybe the word skill matchup's going to come a bit more often as she's just, been toned down in power. Still very strong, still a viable blind pick mid laner, and you still don't want to leave that champion available for Swiffer at last pick.
We'll have to see. Chiefs on the red, so they, like you mentioned, might just look for the counter pick there on their 5th, but Rich Gang going to consider their picks a little bit more now as well. And I think what I love about Maokai especially, we've seen Malphite already. J.K. Smithy from Immunity, I believe, played that against Kalista to great effect, but Maokai's ultimate just seems so good against Rune and Tarakan.
Absolutely. I mean, the AoE damage reduction will be very useful. Sometimes Maokai can struggle against Kalista just because he has one big gap closer and then just kind of a lot of AoE slows. Like, he doesn't have as many strong gap closing CC. It's not Vi. It's not quite the same initiation flavor. It still works. It's still a very viable front line, but they're not going to pick up the Morgana. It is actually going to be the Janna lock here. So not going to go for the single target CC negation. Going to go for that Queen of Disengage.
Yeah, a bit more of the appeal potential there as well. And actually, Huey going to pick up something aggressive there as well. So at least in there from the jungle. And looks like Janna, they're down for Destiny. So you said it already. That's a lot of appeal already for this Kalista.
And they've confirmed the Kalista Janna lane. I mean, Kalista Janna has interesting synergies. Obviously, you love Kalista and that Fate's Call for the Annie Tibbers and for the Morgana, as we mentioned, Soul Shackles. Great as an initiation tool, but we've actually seen in some other scenes using that Kalista Janna. Okay, it's not the same power in lane, but in a team fight, Janna can get in there, use her disengage, You can use Fate's Call to get it to the backline. Then you can use that Monsoon just for healing in the backline. So there is a lot of flexible disengage options, but it's not the reliable engage we kind of expect with the Kalista.
Yeah, it's almost the opposite, where you're just using it
reliable
to save,
disengage.
Exactly, using it to save your squishy support.
Yeah.
Janna's already so good at peeling. The only thing you don't want to have happen is her die. So Chiefs instead going to go with Leona, Corki. They're going to answer a very passive bottom lane with a very aggressive one.
Absolutely, and it's, of course, Radius, Corki. I looked at his solo queue yesterday, 10 victories, about 7 of them on Corki. Always been a standby of that champion for as long as I can remember. So very excited to see what they can do here. But we've actually seen Rosie. We've seen him move away from the Leona. He does play the Leona. Of course, the Gatling gun will continuously proc the passive coming out from Leona. So there's a lot of damage synergy there. Probably going to need that Fate's Call to save that Janna, because a lot of burst damage coming out of this duo.
Yeah, but good follow-up CC there as well. So Chiefs really looking for a lot of hard engage here to try and lock down the hypercarry. You need to throw a lot at Kalista to kind of kill her, because if you don't kill her, things go bad very swiftly.
Yeah, and you can see that Janna's not going to be just peeling for the Kalista. You're going to see the Xerath come as well. It's going to be a big premium on disengage. You have to think both the Lee Sin and Janna. Definitely not going to be looking for engage. It's going to be disengage players from these Rich Gang supports and off supports in that tanky Lee Sin.
Yeah, just want to make sure they can protect the hypercarry, but Rich Gang do round out their lineup. Xerath their pick for the mid lane, and actually a Mundo here, interesting against the Chiefs. Normally seen against the Kalista, actually.
It's a decent laning matchup against Maokai. Maokai can only put forward so much pressure. 1v2, maybe a little bit less safe than Maokai, but very competitive in a 1v2. Mundo could go big this game. There's not that many tools to deal with him in the champions that are picked so far, and Corki's not a tank buster. That's what we have to remember. Corki does a lot of damage, maybe underrated in terms of his late game damage. It's a bit limited to kind of say, all right, he's only a mid game champion, because he can do so much burst in the late game, especially if he hits that phosphorus bomb. But getting through a Mundo, not really Corki's forte.
No, not at all. It's kind of funny. We talk about late game carries and kind of, look at 3.5 items. That's sort of the pie you want to get. So on your Tristanas, on your Caitlyn's. I almost feel like Mundo's the opposite for carries. This is all an anti-carry. He hits the big tank items and then gets to go. And the Chiefs, of course, going to look to counterpick now for Swiffer as well. And that would be quite the champion. In fact, it is locked in. Swiffer's Zed is back, boys and girls.
It's a real gambit to pick Zed here, because whenever I see Zed, I think, all right, so late game, Zed wants to split push. Who's he going to split push against? If the answer is Dr. Mundo and Dr. Mundo gets like a Warmogs and a Randuin's, Swiffer's not going to be able to push that Dr. Mundo out of lane. So this is a gambit. This is basically saying we're going to win this game before Dr. Mundo hits that item threshold, before he hits, let's say reasonably, a Warmogs, a Randuin's, maybe a Spirit Visage thrown in.
Is there maybe some offlane pressure there as well, where they kind of need someone to maybe deal with early game Kalista or early mid game Kalista pushing as well?
I mean, maybe. It'd be interesting to see how it goes. I mean, Kalista is a potential split push threat. You can't expect Kalista to split push when there's a Zed in the game. He's going to hunt her down and take her down wherever possible. There's a lot of balanced team fight coming from the Chiefs, so to actually opt into the Zed is a bit curious to me here, just because if it was double AP or if it was a champion that Zed could deal with in an off lane, absolutely, just go straight in for that Zed. But in this situation, where Dr. Mundo realistically can basically counter their whole team if he gets big enough, it's risky. It's doubling down the mid game and suggesting to me that they think they can out-skirmish Rich Gang early and take it before Dr. Mundo becomes just the tanky menace we know he can be.
Yeah, and against a very aggressive team like Rich Gang, a lot of early skirmishing might be the downfall here, but I guess maybe look back to our feature matchup. Now that we do have the team comps all locked in, how do we think of the jungle matchup? Because early on, that's two very big pressure junglers.
I mean, Lee Sin and Jarvan, they've been synonymous with the new jungle since it was put in, so it's not a surprising matchup whatsoever. We've actually seen Lee Sin's kind of move away from early skirmishing and move into, say, level 6 ganking, Cow in the LPL, for example, and other people. They haven't been relying so much on early pressure. It's kind of always risky at level 4 if you're half health to go in there, try and get the big skirmish off. It's been Spooks' Lee Sin that's kind of been the featured champion for him so far this season, especially in games 1 and 2. So taken away from him here to some degree, but they opted into the Jarvan first pick, basically. So they know what they're getting. They're getting very reliable hard engage.
Yeah, and I guess moving down as well, of course, speaking of strong first picks, Kalista there for Rich Gang, just taken instantly, basically. She's still very strong. I believe received little to no changes on this patch.
Nope.
So, yep, still the same we've seen, and she's been very good so far in the OPL. But moving in, it feels like Chiefs are really all in on trying to kill this hypercarry.
I mean, Zed obviously is a fantastic champion to deal with Kalista. We'll try and get on her with the gap close, with the ultimate, try and kill her. But the issue to me is that they're kind of opting into team fight Zed. That's what you have to think. They have to be like, all right, who do we need to kill? All right, it's the immovable artillery in Xerath and this hypercarry of mobility in Kalista. So that you can definitely see team fights where Zed's able to do that, but opting into basically pigeonholing Zed into a teamfight role and not really having an option for split push, barring really controlling this Mundo in the early game, is a risk. Again, we've said risk a few times when we're talking about Chiefs comp here. It could definitely work out. They could get Mundo back. They could aggressively turret dive, and that's how we saw people deal with Mundo in previous metas, turret dive him before he gets those big tank items. But there will be that timer, whether it's 25 minutes, 30 minutes, 35 minutes, when Mundo will become unkillable, and that's where you have to feel like Chiefs comp falls apart a bit.
Yeah, I mean, Chiefs just kind of understand the windows that's going on. We've seen that they're very good at constructing and orchestrating game plans, but they have a very clear one at this point. We basically picked for mid-game, let's go mid-game. We saw just how effective they could be when Chiefs played Direwolves in the last week, camping Poor Perfection there on his Rumble. Could see the same sort of story. No twist of fate this time, unfortunately, but could see again Swiffer and Spooks getting there with Swiper, trying to get aggressive with the ganks early on.
Yeah, in terms of the Spooks versus Huey matchup coming back to again, they've got the Corki. They've got effectively opted into the mid-game control, so they're going to be looking to pick up those early dragons. They're looking to be pressuring those early objectives. If they're behind in early dragons, I'll be a bit concerned, but that's kind of the thing. They need to open up an advantage and make sure the Mundo's more like a Nasus and kind of tries to happily farm, but the game is played around him, than potentially the Mundos we see sometimes that just really overtake a game.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. You have to keep him under control because, like you mentioned, when he gets to that big 3-4 item spike, especially if he gets ahead early, things go down very swiftly as Mundo runs at you, throwing cleavers into your back. And it's interesting to me that we talk about Rich Gang as an aggressive team. They love to snowball. Talk about Huey having very big performances in Rich Gang wins. This is a very mid-late centric comp here for Rich Gang. It's not super aggressive.
Yeah, it's a good observation. Usually they're the ones going for the early power spikes, the Lissandras of the world, really going for those oppressive mid-game champions. Of course, Chenny Boy's Ari, much like Swiffer's Ari, has been very much respected. But they are opting into the mid to late, and that's been the downfall of a lot of top teams against Chiefs. We mentioned it already. Legacy, of course, they picked the Hecarim top. They went for the late game carries in the Callista, and Chiefs made them pay. Chiefs have actually been very good at dealing with that Callista, so it's a risk. But it's the Chiefs here. They know what they have to do. They know their win conditions better than any team in the OPL. They just have to make them work.
And even in small choices here as well, we actually have a quick look at the summoner spells. Rosie's back on Ignite for a support Leona, so nice to see him being a bit more aggressive. But I like the choice from Chenny Boy as well. He actually has the Exhaust there for his mid lane.
And you often see Janna, even though she's a disengaged support, pick up the Ignite for lane control, just to have that Ignite option, dissuade them from a turret dive. Ignite is surprisingly good as a defensive summoner, because you Ignite someone who's taking turret damage, and it becomes that much harder to work out, is that next turret hit going to kill me? So it's a smart pickup, but when you have Exhaust, when you're against a Zed, especially a single target assassin, Exhaust is just too good to miss out on. So I think you have to pick it up against the Zed, but it makes your lane, already we're talking about the mid-game snowball, it makes it that much harder to control the lane.
Yeah, it really does. And we are into our first game for the evening here as well. Rich Gang versus Chiefs here. Rich Gang over on the blue side. The Chiefs will take up the red. And we didn't mention it in the draft actually, but very important to note, Rich Gang have made a substitution for this game. So Rich Homie not going to be making an appearance this game. It's actually Squiggle there in the top side on the window.
Rich Homie, one of the most popular members of the Rich Gang, just couldn't be there today. So we've got Squiggle in his place. We don't know too much about him. I know he does have previous competitive play on, I believe, Avant in the past. So no stranger to this situation. Probably not going to be any nerves playing from home. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, Squiggle's definitely played on quite a few teams. Had some appearances in last year's events there as well. So definitely has experience here. But we'll see how he slots into this team against some very strong opposition. But Rich Gang, it's so interesting to me. Chiefs have the team that I almost thought Rich Gang were going to pull out for this game.
Absolutely. They've definitely opted into more than mid to late, as you pointed out. Chiefs, they've been consistent in relying on the mid game. They've been consistent in trying to push them out. Even in Callista comps, they double down with mid game champions to ensure that games aren't kind of frozen away from them with too many objectives being taken. Rich Gang, like a few other teams, have opted into the mid to late, and that's not been a winning condition against the Chiefs.
No, and I think that's maybe one of the interesting things to point out as well, is that the Chiefs have been around for so long that we have a very good feel for what their style's like. And if we were to best describe the Chiefs as someone that had never seen them play before, we'd say that they like getting ahead early, getting deep vision down, and snowballing, usually through Spooks, actually, who can be very aggressive when he wants to be. So Chiefs are set up to do that now, but Squiggle actually going to take away some... No, never mind. They actually went to Malco, so bit of experience there for Swiper.
Yeah, whoever I think of the junglers gets a stranglehold in the mid game, and there's no guarantee it'll be one or the other, but I think that will give us a good idea of who's going to win this game. If Huey can kind of arrest the momentum that just the lane and mid-game choices that Chiefs have picked up, get some early pressure, get this Mundo ahead especially, I mean, anything can happen. You kind of throw off all these windows when you have a Dr. Mundo with 2 or 3 kills early.
Yeah, we'll have to see. Those who do see the top lane now, Squiggle versus Swiper. Swiper starting with his standard Doran Drink, but actually a bit of a difference there for Squiggle. Got a Ruby Crystal first there.
I mean, Ruby Crystal was opened up as a viable start when it was reduced to 400 gold. You could get 2 potions with it. Dr. Mundo loves to build health. This matchup's no different, so it's an understandable start. and not really many single target spells for the Doran Shield to be a smart pickup.
Yeah, we're down the bottom here as well. Raider and Rosie on the Corky Leona. Going to be up against Day Shifted Destiny there as well, and that's a good E coming through. Great phosphorus bomb that was operated. Day Shifted going to force to hop away, but they might actually get him for a kill. They're not going to go in. No summoners burn, but such good pressure.
I mean, the level 2 jump in bottom lane is something we always have to keep tabs on. Dayshitter just did not respect the day 2 ping coming out from Rosie. He was 1 creep away himself, got too greedy, and ate, 80% of his health just to get that level? Yeah, I mean, it's a big advantage for the Chiefs.
It really is, and thankfully everyone in bottom lane still has their summoners, but Callista, who's actually shown a lot of promise in quite a few lane matchups in the bottom lane, probably going to struggle a bit against such an aggressive duo from the Chiefs.
It's interesting because I've actually been monitoring this matchup. We see a lot of Corki, so Callista Corki was a matchup that interested me. Callista can actually get ahead in this matchup, even potentially open up an early CS lead. It's all about that level 2. It's all about getting control of the lane. And just too greedy to pick up the level 2. And now, I mean, sometimes you have to look at these laning matchups in terms of potions. No potion and half health against basically a full health Radier. It's a really big deficit for Day Shifted to bring back.
Interesting to point out there as well is you do see the junglers moving through. Huey actually getting a tad aggressive, took out the Scuttle Crab, I believe, on the Dragon side of the map. So kind of taking that away from Chiefs. I guess depends where Spook's path. He did start on the top side, but Trailblazers picked up for both of them, and we might have a bit of a farm game here for the junglers early on.
Even though his positioning was aggressive, it's definitely gone for the more farming-orientated Rangers Trailblazers, as you point out. Not going to be the Chilling Smite, not even the Skirmisher's Saber that we've actually seen a few times in both the OPL and across other scenes. Just looking for a bit more balanced farming to start this game.
Yeah, kind of moving down as well. Mid lane looking very even to start things off. Swiffer up against Chenny Boy there. Kind of an interesting matchup here. It's sort of melee versus range, but Xerath kind of feels like he has to give some respect to Zed.
So we see maybe the more common assassin matchup against the Xerath is like the LeBlanc, for example. But LeBlanc can do some range to harass, whereas Swiffer's on the Zed. It's a very all-in champion. So I guess the issue here is that, when LeBlanc hits level 6, you're like, all right, you could get the Mimic Distortion, you could get the double Q in and do some burst damage. Xerath's going to position so defensively from level 6 onwards, that's not really an option to turret diving him unless there's a lot of help coming from Spooks.
Yeah, well, I have to see if Swiffer maybe even going to look to other lanes, especially with the exhaust. Like you mentioned, probably not going to get too much work done, but Swiffer, is opening up a bit of a CS lead, but Chenny Boy, plenty of experience there in the mid lane, so we'll see how he navigates the early stages of that matchup back in the top. Swiper with a very small lead here, but Squiggle, kind of mentioned, does just want to farm here, and Huey actually is going to pop in towards the top. Swiper going to go in, just dodges the slow, and he'll get away from that one, but forced to flash.
Yeah, commits to the ward jump there, does use his Trinket ward, but it gets a flash. It's a great trade of Trinket for Summoner there.
Yeah, so we talked about Huey needing to get going early for his team, needing to look aggressive, and a good bit of pressure there onto Swiper. He's going to keep pushing in here, and Huey won't revisit. He's actually in the mid lane now, just going to say hello.
Gonna say hello. He sees that Chenny Boy has no mana, so he's gonna need help with controlling the wave. Chenny Boy's done a very good job of kind of getting the harass in. Of course, Swiffer's quite low, but the issue there is that he's used all his mana doing it. Doesn't have lane control, but they're going for Dragon.
Yeah, Dragon actually going in. Spooks will get it then. They'll get the attack with Huey. Forcing it up. Rosie actually stuns him, but he gets safeguarded over the wall to Chenny Boy, so no kill forthcoming, but first Dragon goes to Chiefs.
Yeah, excellent rotation from the Chiefs, noticing all the pressure in top. There you can kind of extend the metaphor and say that a flash is traded for Dragon to some degree. All that top pressure really bought for the Rich game was a Summoner. The early Dragon, we said Chiefs need to double down on objectives. They've at least started very well.
And the thing there as well, all of the aggression that Chiefs were able to get in their bottom lane at level 2 just forced Day Shifted and Destiny out of the lane early, so no defense forthcoming from the Rich gang duo.
He's committed to a very defensive first pickup here with the Vamp Scepter. This is something that Sneaky was known to do for, especially when he was starting to pick up Callista, was to opt into the Vamp Scepter, then move on to the Ruinan's Hurricane. Of course, could still be the Blade of the Ruin King, could be other item pickups. That's kind of been the standby of a Callista build, is the Hurricane. So delaying that power spike, potentially delaying lane control, because of course you don't have the AoE pushing option of the Hurricane and the Ren procs. It's definitely going to be playing on the back foot, you'd have to think, this Callista.
Yeah, it looks like it. And if Day Shifted's the first item is defensive, Radiant is probably going for the most aggressive option there.
I mean, the burst trades, that's what it's all about. You get a little bit of AP scaling coming out from the Phosphorus Bomb, but you're just wanting to get the Phosphorus Bomb order, the old standby.
Yeah, actually, Huey could be in a bit of trouble there. Spook's going to wrap around. Ulti going to get procced in there by Swiffer. Good Shuriken will land, and that's going to be a really easy kill. First blood goes to Zed. Squiggles come down as well. Chenny Boy not quite in range for the ulti, and Swiffer walks out in style.
Yeah, he's actually only falls to half health. I thought maybe he would take a nice burst of damage, but of course you jump back to that Shadow, avoid the turret hits. Very nice dive coming out from Swiffer and Spooks. That old duo is still doing work.
Still pretty good here, and I thought Swiffer might have gone too aggressive, but actually chose not to use his Ignite and wanted to guarantee the kill. So no summoners used, just a very clean dive, and Huey, who we talk about, it needs to get up to good starts. That's not a good start, unfortunately.
Yeah, Swiffer was actually quite slow to pick up Zed. You know, definitely come through the scene, and then he was slow to commit to the non-mage champion. Was always a mage player, was Swiffer, but he loves the Zed now. He picks it up, and knowing the damage range there, respecting the fact, you know, that he understood his damage, holding onto the Ignite, just opens up another kill in about 90 seconds time.
Yeah, we'll have to see how that wants to go here, as Chiefs do kick themselves up to about 500 gold or so, so nothing massive, but opening up some leads here in other lanes as well, as Radio and Rosie going to continue CSing now. Day Shifted is actually very even in CS, so fairly good start there, apart from the early pressure, so things going about the way Rich Gang want at this point.
But you can say, though, if Zed can get on top of mid, you're expecting Maokai with more AoE wave could be able to push out top. And although it's kind of changed at the moment bottom, eventually this lane is going to be played with Corki pushed up. That gives Spooks so much space to influence both the enemy jungle and the lanes. If you're playing defensively in 3 lanes against Spooks and the Chiefs in general, you're really allowing the Chiefs to play their own game, and that's really risky.
Yeah, goodie there from Rosie. So Day Shift going to eat another phosphorus bomb, just taking so much damage. Rosie actually going to chase in there. Doesn't have too much left, but just going to eat a bunch of red stacks, and Day Shifted maybe forced to move now. Yeah,
I expect a repeat of that trade the moment Rosie gets 1 creep away from 6. I thought he might have been there in this situation. He was only about 25 to 30% in terms of experience. So not going to be the Soul Fair available just yet. But if you get overextended against this Corki Leona lane, you're going to need a lot of damage.
And credit to Rosie as well. He's been nailing all of his skill shots on the very mobile Kalista. So Day Shifted just feeling so much pressure. And like you said, with all the bursts coming through from the early Shane Papa, every time he eats CC, he just eats so much damage.
Which gains credit. The CS values in the lanes are very healthy. 6 CS behind in the bottom lane, but basically even or slightly ahead in the other lanes. They're setting themselves up for that late game, and they need to double down. They got the first dragon, but we need to see Chiefs continue to maybe exert their aggression. I'd like to see Spooks contest the next set of blue and red buffs, just to double down and trying to take some of those global objectives away from Rich Gang.
This is a very aggressive posture here by Spooks. He does have level 6, but all summoners and abilities are up here for Rich Gang's bottom lane, so they're going to commit to something he has successfully snuck in, but Swift is actually up towards the top now as well. Does walk past the pink ward, though. That might mean he has to give it up, but Squiggle is going to move in. Swiper very low, and Swiffer just going to go in. Good dodge of the cleaver. Good flash there coming in, just missing the last few Qs, but really wants it. Goes straight in for the kill, and ulti's out.
So much aggression, but calculated aggression coming from Swiffer. And now how brilliant does saving that Ignite look? It's what confirmed the kill. Excellent play, but Rich Gang, they're going to try and get some turret damage to answer.
Yeah, nice rotation for a little bit of counter pushing here coming through for Rich Gang. Looks like they might actually get the first turret of the game as well, so Huey going to get a bit more attack speed there from the passive, and they do take it. So, I mean, Swiffer's starting to take control of the map, but that's a very key structure failed by Rich Gang.
Absolutely. For them to pick up their first turret is kind of against the run of play, you'd have to say. It's an excellent room from Swiffer, but that's kind of the issue of the Zed Xerath lane, is that Xerath, in comparison to other champions that you roam upon, has so much AoE wave play, even before he's picked up a lot of AP now, you have to say, that you are going to answer with a turret or a lot of turret damage every time that roam comes in.
Yep, swiping in a head back now as well, dragging up in a minute. And Chiefs are going to look for their second. Rich Gang possibly to contest for their first. So we'll see how that goes. Looks like Rod of Ages is done. Very nice timing on the item there by Swiper. So Chiefs, they're all set up for their second dragon.
Yeah, 21 minutes. That's probably the epicenter of the mid game. That's going to be when the Rod of Ages is completed on Maokai. And that's when Chiefs are going to want to have a 5,000 gold lead, a significant gold lead they can strangle Rich Gang away from. Because you can look now at Dr. Mundo. He's close. He's working on that Warmonk. He's already picked up the Magic Resist for lane. Doesn't need to finish the Spirit Visage off yet. He's getting towards that moment. He's got, you know, basically about 1 completed item at this point between those components, and he's just going to get bigger.
I mean, for me, I feel like the best way to measure Dr. Mundo is maybe look at when he gets his 2 items, because if he's really tanky by the time he has those 2 items, your team's probably in trouble.
Yeah, your team's in a lot of trouble, but the Rod of Ages timing is excellent. Usually it's the 13 to 14 minutes, so it's a snowball Rod of Ages, definitely.
Yeah, Swiffer actually going to take damage, but Chenny Boy going to get dove on Swiffer. Little too aggressive, gets kicked in the face by Huey. Chenny Boy will get low, but will not go down.
But look at the timing of that rotation. Exactly as Dragon spawns, they pick off the mid lane. So it undoes the excellent vision control. We just saw 1 pink being cleared out. Another one's actually up, but it'd be massive for Rich Gang to arrest the Dragon momentum and pick this one up.
Yeah, looks like they are going to get as well. Don't even need the Kalista to confirm it. Swiper instead will trade a turret, but Rich Gang, we talk about Huey getting aggressive. That was a brilliant gank.
And it's kind of the issue here is we talk a lot about what a Dragon's worth. It is the first Dragon, so it gives you those stats in the late game. What I can say is that a lot of the Chiefs' pressure comes from forcing their way towards towards the 4th, the 5th dragon. So just adding 6 minutes to the clock, theoretically, is 6 minutes more for Mundo to farm. So I think losing the global gold, but kind of stopping that objective snowball, in a lot of games wouldn't be correct. But if it gets Dr. Mundo bigger, he goes back, picks up that Kindle gem. Has it finished now? The game is on a clock for both teams.
Yeah, we'll have to see. The Chenny Boy actually going to throw the E out, but will secure his blue buff. Spooks cannot steal, and no one there from the Chiefs to help him out. Spooks actually getting very aggressive, just pops down a Trinket Ward, and looks like Chiefs might rotate in for their next turret here. Mid actually going to get aggressed on by Swiffer.
Yeah, I mean, both junglers have their warrior enchantments complete. There's no quick sight stones coming out. They're doubling down on skirmishing, but it's going to be that much harder to skirmish without Dragon up. They're going to look to mid turret.
Yeah, good rotation here by Swiper as well, just making sure that they can get this turret, and they will secure it. So good space opened up by the Chiefs. Raider almost on his way to that Trinity Force as well. So once that happens as well, Corky's going to look to group even more with the Chiefs and knock down turrets.
The sooner they get the 3 turrets down, and of course Radier picking up that Triforce, we look at the gold, basically has enough gold for it now. He's right on top of that in terms of timing. That's when we're going to see Swiffer move into the offlane. Also, especially if it combines with the Blade of the Ruin King being completed, makes him very strong at split pushing, and Mundo has no armor yet. Health is not that useful against the Blade of the Ruin King, so that will be the moment in the game where it's going to be the most lopsided in terms of advantage in the split push. That's when Mundo won't really be able to stand up to the Zed.
Yeah, and we talk about Corky a lot and how he's just such a good Trinity Force AD carry. How do you feel does the builds equate here? Because Kalista, going to get the Hurricane fairly soon, but Raidier's going to be done with his Trinity Force.
It's definitely going to be a huge power trough as we see some tank fights and stuff. Don't think Mundo's going to fall down, even with only the level 1 ult. But Swiffer's there.
Yeah, Swiffer has rotated in as well. Going to move in. Actually, as his Shadow does have his ulti, but trying to buy some time. Good CC there coming through. And now Squiggle going to get aggressed on the ulti. Will pop out and Squiggle. Nothing he can do. Almost takes out Swiper, but Swiffer gets another kill. 3-1-0 now on this Zed.
It's not often that 14 minutes into the game, both outer mid turrets are down, but it opens up so much movement for both laners potentially. But of course, Swiffer on that Zed, so much more gank pressure compared to Chenny Boy. Chenny Boy picks up some farm in the downtime, but they lose out on a big objective.
Yeah, and Raider actually 1v3 right now, although Chenny Boy is rotating down as well. Raider has done the Trinity Force, and you saw Huey didn't want anything to do with it, despite outnumbering Raider at that turret 3-1.
Yeah, and the standard for picking up a Trinity Force is to try and burst down the last of the outer turrets at the top. It happens to be the bot lane turret, so I expect to see Swiffer and the rest of Chiefs really commit to this bottom lane. It's smart that Chenny Boy's rotated there. It's odd for the mid lane to kind of be the standard lane that nothing's happening, and usually it's top or bot respectively whenever the turrets go down. But nobody's really interested in that mid farm just right now.
No, we'll have to see that. Day Shifted has actually done the Berserker Greaves there as well, so Hurricane on the way, and you saw it makes a big difference there with that Martial Poise Rain, able to hop out of Phosphorus Songs much easier now.
But it is a huge item trough compared to a Trinity Force. Not even the Hurricane for a bit of wave control. You can say that the earlier Berserker Greaves gives you the chance to get just those many more auto attacks in with the flat movement speed, and of course the scaling speed coming from the passive. Potentially can get the Ren damage in, but it's no Hurricane, that's for sure.
Yeah, Swiffer might have been caught out here, actually going to try to dodge the ultis. Doesn't have his own, so can't do anything. And Squiggle going to get that first kill. Swiper going to dive in now as well, but he's 1v3 now as Huey going to rotate in. Swiper doing a lot of damage. Good exhaust and a great flash by Chenny Boy. Swiper going to go down there as well. Huey going to get another kill. And it's a bit of mispositioning there by the Chiefs.
Yeah, but they'll take it if they can trade bottom turret for it. Radia's doing a lot of damage to this turret, and nobody from Rich Gang is rotating. So even though it's 2 kills, even though it's the maximum you'd give up for a turret, I think Chiefs will be happy with that.
Yeah, so 3-1 now in turrets. They'll take it at this point at least. Maybe a little sad they didn't get that second dragon. Rich Gang did a very good job keeping on top of that one. And next dragon back up in a minute 55. So this game, we talk about it, there's a lot of mid-game power here for Chiefs. They've hit their first item timings now coming through as well. But Rich Gang holding on very well.
One of the things we've always done with the Chiefs is kind of respect their play calling, especially their on-the-fly reactive play calling. So you look at Squiggle's build right now. He's doubled down on the Spirit Visage. He's completed the magic resist option. Sure, that's a good stat in his laning matchup against Maokai. Sure, it's valuable magic resist against Radier, who even on an AD carry, Corky does so much mixed and specifically magic damage that you have to respect it. But he's got no semblance of armor whatsoever. So if they're smart and they send Zed to his lane right now, they're going to struggle building that Warmox. If you don't opt into any armor early, Zed should easily be able to 1v1 the Mundo.
Yeah, Rosie wants to go in. A good monster in there by Destiny. Kicks back Rady, but Rosie trying to nail the skill shot. Gets they shifted out of the martial point, and Rady just blows him up. Spook's actually going to get the kill. A great solo flare onto Destiny, going to give the double over, and Rady going to finally pick up a kill.
You look at the minimap. There's 2 wards down for rotations through their own jungle, but no wards in the river. They did not spot that rotation coming in from the Chiefs. And look, 3 turrets down, people getting picked across across the map. Dr. Mundo is not getting this time to farm at all.
No, good teleport there as well. So if we're actually hanging out in the mid lane right now, just moving Squiggle back, there's a decent wave there in the top for Chiefs to collective. Swiffer does want to go there, but the Chiefs going to use this Corky Trinity Force and try and knock down a tier 2 turret now.
Yeah, Rich Gang are very slow in rotating members bottom. They might even lose Huey as well.
Huey's in so much trouble. Great CC combo there. Spooks nails the EQ and Swiper, the easiest twisted advance of his life to ensure that kill. Rady with so much damage that Squiggle has rotated down now. Mundo quite tanky, just throwing cleavers into the back. Swiper getting low. Rady going to be forced to back out. Chenny Boy popping the ulti. Now Jay shifted. Going to come in, gets the first reset. Squiggle now going to chase down Rady. Rogues actually gets Chenny, but Rady still running for his life. Spooks is solo, but Swiffer just destroys Day Shifted. Squiggle though got the first kill. Swiffer forced to fight. Is he going to eat a cleaver? The ward's good, but it might not be enough. He gets out with a W and a 2-for-2 trade. Carnage in the bottom lane.
So many low members from Chiefs. You look at the target selection. Day Shifted was excellent in spraying the damage, but Squiggle just wasn't in position. Even a few burning agony ticks would have been enough to pick up a couple of exit kills. So close, but so far from Rich Gang.
Yeah, and just a lot of aggression, but, you know, the comp scaling a little bit more. Don't have the item spikes quite done yet. Just not enough, like you mentioned. And the Dragons back up here, but Rich Gang are on top of it. Chiefs were forced to back there, and that's a big deal here for Rich Gang.
Absolutely. Picking up a second Dragon. Again, it's not global gold. I guess the issue comes for Rich Gang is that they need to buy time, and the Dragon will buy time to a degree, but losing an inner bottom turret would have been completely unacceptable. It's low, but it's important that it stays up, because it just buys space for them to split farm. If they lose all their outer turrets in the next 5 minutes, they won't be anywhere safe on the map for either Dr. Mundo or Kalista to pick up farm, and that's when the game will be completely taken away from Rich Gang. They have to defend those structures at any cost.
Yeah, you can see Chenny Boy actually pushing out the big wave that are built up in towards the top side, so he'll collect a lot of farm for himself. Working on a Zon is actually very smart up against Swiffer Z as we kind of move down as well. Warmbox is done there for Squiggle, so 2 items are starting to come out for Rich Gang, but they have to keep pace with the Chiefs, who've got about 3,000 gold lead right now.
And we talked about Chiefs trying to contest these objectives. They're going for the enemy red buff. No way at all for Rich Gang to contest the red buff. So the Dragons are bonus, especially with the ward lines that are down, but Chiefs need to double down, get those pink wards aggressively in the enemy jungle. You can see they've picked them up. There's 3 pink wards available in the inventories right now from Chiefs. They need to extend their pink line forward, because at this point, they should not be letting Rich Gang get a free Raptor camp, let alone their blue buff.
Yeah, and you can see the Chiefs, they can love to play this way, get the aggressive wards in, really apply pressure on Swiffer. I wonder if he's going to really start rotating. He's actually motioning towards the top side of the map. I think he's going to start the split push train.
He's got the Ignite available. No armor picked up on Dr. Mundo. He's very tanky in a team fight sense, but at least on paper, he should not be able to deal with Swiffer in a side wave.
Yeah, so Zed making the nice rotation. You're going to stick in this top lane for a short while, and the Chiefs going to apply pressure elsewhere. You mentioned the tier 2 turret in the bot. Not quite done yet, but not far away. Good Scuttle Crab control there as well by Chiefs, knowing that Baron is ready to go. Mundo's not bad at that spook show. He's going to get poked by Chenny Boy, but Rosie might just want to go in. Does actually pop the ulti. Just missing the good flash there, but Chenny keeps him safe.
He might have been able to hold on to that summon. It's going to be so important when Jarvan comes in. Of course, Jarvan, we do see the blind pick Zerats coming out in some scenes, and Jarvan's the go-to counter, because the moment the flash is down, you can't be immovable against a Jarvan. You're dead when the Cataclysm comes through. So to use the ult there with Janna next to him, with potentially enough peel to get away, might pay for that in the next 4 minutes.
Yeah, the Chiefs, good defensive warning here by Rich Gang, but the Wolf Spirit actually going to keep them safe as well. Squiggle going to force them out of their jungle that just throws a cleaver at Swiper, but items still coming through now. Rady working on, I think that's Infinity Edge second.
You have to think Infinity Edge has potential coming in for a Last Whisper. If we'd already seen the Randuin's completed on Dr. Mundo for some implied tank busting, we might have seen the Last Whisper come in. But yeah, I'd have to guess it's going to be the Infinity Edge.
Yeah, and that's just so much big damage. Again, the Chiefs theme for this team comp, mid-game, 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 and now they're going to be 4 strong here in the mid. Swiffer even going to rotate in as well. There's no Dragon up for a couple more minutes, but they're just actually going to go in here. Swiffer a little low on health, will lifesteal back up from the creeps. And I like the ult there used by Chenny Boy in that seed, trying to push him off the turrets, but the Chiefs are just saying, look, you don't get to push us, that's our job now.
But they are allowing Rich Gang to pick up farm. They're still able to go across the map, pick up farm, and with Dragon being down, in fact, not even having an exact timer, a bit harder to pressure the objectives the Chiefs need to snowball their comp. So Mundo's happily in the top lane, nobody's punishing him across the map. That's what Rich Gang wants. It's when the 30, 40 CS advantages come across the map, when literally going past, say, your outer base turret is too much of a risk due to map pressure, that the Rich Gang comp just won't be able to pick up the farm they need to reach the late game. Right now, they're still scaling towards the late game on time.
Yeah, and looking good. We want to talk about item builds there as well. Kalista getting stronger here. Dayshifter just finished his Blade of the Ruin King. So the 2-item power spike, Kalista's a big jumping off point for me. It's online now.
And he definitely is going to be relying a lot on Destiny to provide the peel against Zed. Blade of the Ruin King's not going to be enough peel. The Bloodthirster shield probably would have been a safer defensive option than going for the Blade of the Ruin King. Of course, a little bit more expensive and also a bit harder to buy. You have to save for that BF sword, so potentially not being able to get as many combat stats. But with the Blade of the Ruin King, definitely going to need to be Huey and Destiny both on point to keep Dayshifter alive in fights, because a lot of damage potential coming out. And of course, the Blade of the Ruin King spreads on the Hurricane, so a lot of synergy.
Yeah, and we kind of look through as well, as the Chiefs have started finishing some 2-item power spikes of their own. Radier does have a BF, so lots of flat AD there. Going to move into what is now almost assuredly an Infinity Edge second, but Last Whisper done for Swift. Are going to combo in with that Brutalizer, and Spooks actually has himself a very quick Aegis, and he did go Sightstone.
I mean, the Aegis, there's a lot of AoE magic damage coming out from Dr. Mundo. With those items, in a team fight setting, Aegis probably going to be useful to deal with the burning agony damage. But it's not a true double AP comp, so it's a decent item pickup, but it's not kind of that picture-perfect Aegis they were demanding during Champ Select.
No, and again, just a very mid-game-centric pickup here by Chiefs. And for me, honestly, they're trying to apply pressure. I do like that Swivers here in the top lane, but it feels like they're just waiting for Dragon Call instead of trying to group up and really pressure the tier 2.
So then you'd have to say success to Rich Gang. That second Dragon has basically bought them 5 minutes so far of free farm. There's been nothing the Chiefs have been able to push down since they kind of stole away the second Dragon, let alone the first Dragon. So the Chiefs, they're basically putting all their eggs in the basket of taking down this next Dragon.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to have to go in for it. It's going to be their second in 50 seconds. And Rich Gang already have 2, so it'd be a disaster for Chiefs to lose their third Dragon here. But they're setting up for something, starting to sweep out Vision there as well. And Swifro going to move him down towards the Dragon now, 40 seconds up. Almost level 16 for this set, so very strong, but not quite there yet. Raider actually, though, going to get aggressive with the Valkyrie. Looks like they tried to catch, I think, Destiny out there in the jungle, but he'll stay safe for now.
Yeah, but Destiny had to use his flash. The Fate's Call came in after the flash went down, so again, kind of awkward that both Xerath's flash and Janna's flash are available when theoretically they could have kept them up. Not sure if the Chiefs will be able to take advantage of that in the next fight, but it might be significant.
Yeah, it's kind of looked through as well. We look at objectives, talk about getting Vision. We actually forgot to mention, the trinkets have been changed a little here on this patch as well.
Yeah, no cannons, but a lot of change in the trinkets. Speaking of changes, Swift is in trouble.
Yeah, he's actually taking a lot of damage. Swipe already teleported in, and Squiggle just getting so aggressive. Radiant going to go in now as well. Huey tries to kick him back, but Spooks does go back in there with the Cataclysm. Swiper taking up so much damage, and Radiant gets the first kill onto Chenny. That is going to go in now, but Rosie is in amongst here, and Radiant has got exhausted. Dayshifter getting so many resets. Gets a double already. I think that's going to be a quadra. I got the last one as well. That is the triple there at least coming out for Callisto, and Rich Gang turn that fight around.
We said Dayshifted was there in terms of items, but it was such an awkward fight because it was a wonderful target selection from Spooks. He's like, all right, I know the flash isn't up on Xerath. I'm going to ult him, and that worked great. The issue was that Dayshifted sat at the back of the Cataclysm, used the terrain that was created almost as a defensive area, and no one could close distance. And we all know about the Ren sets. They came in really strong that fight.
They did indeed, and Rich Gang not going to take their third Dragon, going to opt for a Baron it looks like here instead, so Spooks has to run pretty quickly in those Ninja Tavi, and I don't think he's going to get there in time.
Blade the Ruin King, Rend, and Smite available. It's going to be an easy Dragon for Rich Gang.
Spooks is here. Can he go in for the steal? He's not going to make it in time. It does go low, and Spooks arrives to get the bad news. Throws the flag over and thinks, well, the goals equalize now, and Rich Gang are looking to scale quite nicely with that Kalista going off in that last fight.
The scaling is real. Very close to a Randuin's is Squiggle and Rich Gang. And it's important for Chiefs to walk down, not dwell on the Baron they lost, and pick up this Dragon to at least get a bit of global momentum. But Chenny Boy is very early in position to start harassing.
Yeah, good poke actually, but Swift is going to dive immediately onto him. Zonius did not get finished by Chenny in his last back, so he'll get forced off. The teleport's going to come through now. So second Dragon does go to Chiefs, but Squiggle is so tanky, he might just run in.
Yeah, Squiggle's basically 1v5 at this point, but there's no point turning on the Mundo. They've chunked out Chenny Boy. He doesn't have flash or ultimate. You can see they want to turn, but probably not a smart move.
I mean, just all of the cleavers here, and Chiefs are just going to have to take whatever poke they can get, and maybe even lose a tier 2 turret here. Chiefs are going to get low. Chenny, he's got decent poke here as well on this Xerath, and Chiefs just can't really afford to go in. Squiggle has almost hit the 3-item point now. That influx of gold he just got was a godsend.
And he had that minion wave up top pushing this whole time. They finally take out an outer turret. They're ahead in turrets. This is very surprising page time, but in terms of the item timings and the game flow we expected, Rich Gang are on top.
Yeah, I mean, they first picked Kalista, had a very confident plan. We said that they did have to let things kind of scale up a little bit, kind of get themselves through what would be quite a tough mid-game, and at this point, they have. They're almost 2,000 gold ahead of the Chiefs, get a turret, stealing away blue buffs. They're equal on Dragon's Law, which is probably the ridiculous thing.
And that window on the Zed split push is fast closing. It's the random one's basically the death knell to the split push with all the flat health that Squiggle's already built up. Only now, 27 minutes in, do they really seem to be committing to the split push, and that's against a Baron buff Dr. Mundo. It's not going to work. So they're losing out on one of the core tenets of Zed. If you don't get the split push going, you cannot rely on his team fight play, especially against an exhaust Janna.
Yeah, and Swiffer even going a bit more aggressive with his build. Yomu seems to be lined up there for his next item with the Avarice Blade in his inventory, and Chiefs, the window that they have to really make an impact on this game is swiftly closing, if not shut.
And it's going to be the case of just having to use superior teamfight mechanics and experience to get the fights they want. But with the comp they're against and the tools they have to deal with Kalista, it's basically, does Swiffer delete Day Shifted, or do Rich Gang want a team fight?
And part of the reason I like Radier's build is that it is a little bit of late game insurance, I guess. It's not much for the Corki, but Infinity Edge second does give you maximum damage output for this point in the game. So Radier is very strong. If Chiefs can find the right fights, they look good. But Zhonya's just got done for Chenny, and QSS is done now for Day Shifted.
I mean, the issue with Corki's build is that this is, of course, after 5% crit was moved from Infinity Edge, and of course, not a lot of crit coming out of Trinity Force. Huey.
Yeah, good. Engagement actually going to come in, but Rosie doesn't follow in on the ulti. A quick safeguard keeps Lee Sin okay, and Rich Gang just going to force Chiefs out of their own jungle now.
I mean, the thing about Trinity Force Corki is that Corki is about burst trades, so if you do get the critical strike off with the Sheen proc, okay, it's amazing, huge damage, but it has been targeted with that Infinity Edge nerf, and it's a bit more RNG required to get exactly the purchase out of that item.
Yeah, Raider actually going to go in, but Squiggle just going to pop his ultimate, and nothing the Chiefs can do in that situation to actually kill the Mundo, who we mentioned to Papa, he needed the 3 items, and he's basically there with the Randy. It's just needing the recipe to complete.
Basing now to go pick it up. It's going to be a big pickup, probably going to pick up a pink ward along with it. Doesn't have ultimate available, of course, on a very, very short cooldown. They needed that pick. They almost took out Huey. They need a pick and try to answer with some map movement because they're behind in turrets, which is a massive thing to say given they had 3 down at, what, 18 minutes?
And for me, kind of looking through, Chiefs maybe even missed a window to get aggressive with their vision, because I looked down at the Rich Gang trinkets. They have so many upgraded sweepers in particular. I mean, I love the upgraded yellow trinket from both the top laners. Makes a lot of sense to me, but you know, there's the standard orbs on both sides. Radio's upgraded his, but the Chiefs just never could get vision in and take away Rich Gang's vision to really push them back towards their tier 2 turrets.
Rich Gang are definitely on top of the 5.3 changes. They have 4 upgraded trinkets compared to just the 3 getting down from Chiefs. So I agree, with 250 gold being that upgrade price, so much easier to fit it in with your buy. So often you have that spare 300 gold and you could maybe pick up a cloth armor, but you can now pick up the trinket, double down on vision, basically overward the map. But between all the trinket upgrades, the pink ward line they've picked up, and these Kalista Sentinels roaming the map, there should be no way this is the case, but Rich Gang actually have the map vision advantage as well.
Yeah, and the Chiefs just getting stifled at this point in the game. It is equal on Dragons. Dragon will be back up for the either team's third in a minute 50, but Chiefs looking a little, I don't know, just a little scared almost. They're not really looking to move through their base. Swiffer's not quite level 16 yet, even though he's been inside Earth for a while. We didn't expect that teamfight Zeg was going to be the answer there for Chiefs, but they're kind of priced into teamfighting now.
We mentioned that it was a reality if Dr. Mundo got big enough. There was a window when Dr. Mundo wasn't big, when he was sitting on a Spirit Visage and a Giant's Belt, when I said, all right, split push time, let's go do this. He doesn't have the armor to deal with all the percentage health coming out from the Blade of the Ruin King. But that time's over, and you have to also talk about the other item timings. A Mikhail's Crucible, Janna with all her summoners up, and now a QSS also available on Day Shifted. I mean, Swiffer kind of has to look to other targets, but who else is going to deal with it?
I mean, Swiffer going to dive in onto Huey. He's going to try and get it. Actually misses his flash there, and Rosie not going to land the Xander plate either. So Huey will get quite a few cooldowns out of that, and the Chiefs just can't get Rich Gang out of their own jungle.
Yeah, I mean, Day Shifted when he has all the summoners up and so many options, he's just not realistic person to be killed. Speaking of realistic people to be killed, Radiant needs to run away from this Dr. Mundo, even with backup.
Squiggle fairly unrealistic at this point. Just regenerating so much. It does get spotted out by the Scrying Orb. Squiggle won't quite whack away that little ward. Actually walks in, does slap it in the face. There we go. And I mean, Squiggle is just such a threat now. You mentioned that Swiffer can't deal with him. Neither can Radier.
We gave a lot of praise to Chiefs for being proactive, and they delivered on that with the first 3 turrets. But ever since they chunked down that inner turret and had the dragon stolen away, they've kind of been out of ideas. It's been about 15 minutes of passive play from them. against a team comp anyone can see they'll be outscaled by.
Yeah, Mundo is just so massive right now. He's got a decent lead up against Swiper as well, just quickly checking the gold. They're 1,200 gold ahead, so not massive, but you think about, Mundo with 10,000 gold versus Maokai with 10,000 gold. Pretty sure most teams would take the Mundo at this point.
And able to go the BF sword into potentially the Bloodthirster for the double lifesteal, because not much armor completed on Chief's side either. They've got plenty of magic resist. They're going to negate a lot of Chenny's damage. But once the Void Staff comes through, it's still going to be sticking. And Day Shifted, he's going to be hard to kill, and he's going to be pumping out plenty of team fight damage.
Yeah, now Chief's actually going to move in, clear out some vision around the Dragon, but Rich Gang are so strong right now. Swiffer is level 16. He does have the blue buff there as well, freshly picked up, but Baron is back as well. Rich Gang just have so much control over this map.
Swiffer is going to absolutely have to do his best Dade impression with amazing teamfight Z mechanics. Well, I just don't see how Chiefs can push it for a win.
Well, Rich Gang going to move in for their third Dragon. It will go down very quickly with Callista here, especially. Chiefs might just wait for it goes down and then look to commit with some exit kills. Spooks going to get aggressive. Does find Dayshift there. The Xenoblade just missing there as well. Dayshift hopping. A great Monsoon knocks Rosie out, and Spooks is so low there, and Swiper is diving in, but there's so many resets. Dayshift though does get low. Shut down there by Corky. Swiffer as well is going to go down. A Squiggle picks him up, and now they're going to try and peel away. It's just 1-for-1, but they trade him in for AD carry. Brady though can't do anything against the Mundo, and Destiny of all people going to get the kill. Squiggle gets the next one there into Jarvan, and Rosie, he can't quite run from all these cleavers. Does flash out. Huey picks up Swipe around the back of the fight as well, and Rosie looked to be the last one here for the Rich Gang ace.
Yeah, they tried so hard to kill Dayshift. They waited for his QSS to be done. They waited for Mikhail's to be down. They finally killed him, but at what cost? Everyone else on the team was chunked out, and Squiggle looked like he was doing massive damage just because everyone was so squishy to his constant cleavers coming and all the Burning Agony damage. It's very, very difficult to kill Callista, but if they don't do that, and even if they do, they buy a lot of pain.
Well, Papa, it's even harder to kill Mundo in this situation. We saw it, Chiefs, did eventually get the kill, but Squiggle just walked in and did work. Rich Gang gonna easily pick up this Baron now as well. Squiggle plenty tanking off and got great neutral control with the cleavers as well. And Rich Gang, a little low there on Chenny and Destiny, but they'll be okay. Destiny gonna have to be careful. Rosie actually gonna ward it up. They might be able to go in here. They don't have Callista, so it's quite hard for them to secure the Baron, but there should be enough. The ulti's gonna come in. They do get Baron. The Chenny boy actually picked it up, and Swiper's forced to cancel that TP.
Yeah, it was actually an awkward smite value from Huey. He has smite on cooldown, went for it, and did not get the appropriate smite in. Thankfully, Chenny timed his burst just at the same time. They get the big buff. Dayshifted, I believe, respawns in time to pick it up as well. And problems just go from bad to worse for Chiefs.
Yeah, and look, the Chiefs definitely displaying some very strong team fighting mechanics in that Dragon fight. They were able to get the right targets and look like the team that when they team fight look absolutely incredible. But the issue is, the cost they paid was a little too high, like you mentioned, and it's just a matter of, Chiefs, they can team fight all they want, but can they outscale this Rich Gang comp?
Well, I mean, look at the item that's been completed from Mundo. It's the Thorn Mail. It's always the fourth item, Thorn Mail. That's the death knell to most comps. They do have ways to deal with Day Shifted, but that was their play call. It was, all right, we got to kill Callista first, and they did, but everyone on the team got chunked out. It wasn't two people diving. It wasn't a frontliner dying for Callista. It was everyone, and that was an awkward positioning towards the back of the Dragon pit. If it's an open fight and Dayshifter can use his passive to move around the backline and he's not stopped by any sort of walls or any other jungle terrain, it's going to be that much more difficult to kill that Callista.
You can see Dayshifter, they're going to come down as well. Going to clear out these creeps with the help of some bound up minions in a very strong looking Callista right now. I mean, Swiffer is at least moving into the sidelines trying to push them back, but again, he realistically has to group with his team at this point. No big objective here for the Chiefs today. They're going to have to just watch Rich Gang push in with this new Baron buff.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see what item Swiffer picks up next. If it's a Bloodthirster or some other lifesteal item, maybe even a Ravenous Hydra for team fight damage, that might be necessary. You might be tempted to walk towards the tanky items at this point on Zed, just because you've got your Assassination Trio down, but you kind of need AoE damage coming out in team fight, so you kind of have to continue with the AD. You do not have enough damage to team fight yet.
No, Swiper actually going to clear out Super Minions, having a bit of trouble actually. Baron Minions are not a joke when it comes to their power, and Squiggle going to move back and forth as well. So much health on that Mundo, almost 4,000 health completed.
Yeah, 4,000 health, 325 armor, 150 magic resist against just, a Maokai and some mixed damage from Corki. He's doing okay pastry time.
He is indeed, and we mentioned it, Rich Gang going to look to this Mundo in towards the late game. We've pretty much got to that point now. 37 minutes or so elapsed in this game. Rich Gang might not look like they're doing that much, but Chiefs are just so scared to leave their lower third of the map.
You have to also commend Rich Gang. This is a sub, remember. Squiggle's playing. It's no Rich Homie in the top lane. So it's surprising to see them lean so heavily on a sub, give him a champion that kind of needs to be babied. We saw this already from Avant with Bad Game LoL and the big Jax game he played, comping a team around the Jax. You're not necessarily comping a team around some Mundo, but Mundo games tend to go one way. You eventually win or you quickly lose.
Yeah, and right now Rich Gang looks like they might just eventually win, but next Dragon going to be up in a minute 40. Swiffer relegated to basically counter-push duty right now. The Baron buff doing a lot of work, and again, Rich Gang not really breaking the base, have a good turret lead already, but weren't able to rotate in for the tier 2, but it doesn't matter. They've got an advantage on Dragons. They'll keep going, and Chiefs are just running out of options.
But Rich Gang, they only have 2 ranged auto attackers for getting those inhibitor turrets. So inhibitor turrets, very, very difficult for them to pick up. They haven't managed to organize the minion wave control to be able to get this top lane.
That was a really good bit of poke there, and Huey going to move in. Actually, Raider going to get kicked back, and Jenny Boy just destroys him with the W, and one pick might be all Rich Gang need.
They're going to go for the brute force here. They have the AD carry down. Not that much wave clear left. They need to pick up a big objective.
Rosie wants to go, and he pops the ulti. They find Huey. They're going to move in. Swiper actually gets the first kill, so Chiefs going to equalize the push now, 4v4.
The minion waves in top and bot are not pushing. In fact, they're pushing against Rich Gang. That might be significant in this base push. They need to pick up an outer turret with that AD carry dead, but there's only a 20-second window. It basically has to be this way.
No, Mikhails is down there, but QSS is not, so Swiffer going to be hard-pressed to kill someone here, although Corki will, of course, make it back much earlier. Swiffer, though, going to be forced to juke the ultis there. Spooks does pop the locker, but Swiffer, less than half health, going to be forced back here, and this turret going to continue to take damage.
I would have thought that Squiggle could have picked up aggro and they could have let Destiny do his best to free auto. He has all his summoners available. They still have the QSS available. I feel like they should have gone harder to pick up that objective because they haven't gone to the trouble of the side minion wave pushes to guarantee global pressure. So then you kind of have to dive and double down on picking up this mid turret.
Well, Rich Gang will pull off very nicely, and actually the Dragon is available now. So Huey going to be a little late here, but the Chiefs not able to position here quite aggressively enough to take it out. So Rich Gang going to look in here, and no smite, but no problem here. Day Shift is Kalista going to do more than enough securing.
Who needs a smite when you've got the Rend coming through from Kalista with enough autos, with all the attack speed between the Blade, the Ruin King, and the Hurricane? That's 4 dragons. So another timer to speak about. We've talked about the Mundo timer. We've talked about the mid-game importance from Chiefs. 4 dragons moving on to the 5th one. Another thing for the Chiefs to think about in 6 minutes' time.
Yeah, Swiffer is here in the top side, though. Might be able to get a turret for himself. That's an extra pickaxe. No, Squiggle will deny the tower dream there. And Swiffer, sorry, just has to walk away. Nothing he can do against this Mundo right now.
So he's got another giant spell here, Squiggle. Will it be the Sunfire Cape to give him a bit more a wave clear, or will it even be the Frozen Mallet? We actually seen over in NA Zion Spartan rushing the Frozen Mallet on Na to great effect. You already have quite persistent slow on Mundo, but why not double down and get it 100%?
Swiffer, good job. That actually steals away the blue buff, so Huey not able to secure that for himself, and that's going to be denied away from Chenny Boy, so not too bad there. Swiffer will take it, but Chiefs need a lot of work here in this fight. I mean, they're down 5,000 gold, but against the Mundo and this Kalista, that must feel like so much more.
Chenny Boy had been sitting on a blasting one for a long time. We were talking about his Void Staff completion rate about 10 minutes ago. He's actually saved all his gold, picked up a death cap here. It gives him a lot of wave clear, but that's not really an issue for Rich Gang at this present point. It's doing damage to the front line. You have to think a death cap, while it does decent AP scaling, ramping up that AP with the passive, it's not really going to help them kill this front line.
No, and Swiffer actually does get exhausted there. Going to be forced to dodge the ulti. Dodge going on to Chenny Boy. That's good aggression as Swiffer pops out. Is he able to go get the kill? Raider actually gets killed on the day shift in the back. Swiffer still alive somehow, but Squiggle gets that first kill. But now Spook's going to get aggressed on Swiper here as well. Looks like Chenny is very low, but there's just nothing they can do. They're going to keep moving in. Rosie now going to come back as well. Raider and Rosie were so far away. Chenny still alive there, and now Raider is going to be forced to move around. Actually gets in, gets the next kill there, but Rich Gang is so tanky. Chiefs are going to try and turn around. Destiny going to go down there. So so Huey going to move down on Squiggle. He might be tanky, but the rest of the Chiefs will turn on him, and they should eventually be able to take the Mundo 4-for-1.
Some of the positioning coming out of Rich Gang as we finally see Squiggle die was really off in that fight. First, in the bottom lane, they shifted Court 1v2 against the Corki Leona duo. That should never happen. They should have the defensive vision up. But you look at the minimap, it's been mostly cleared by the Chiefs. So that's a vision error coming out from Rich Gang. And then Chenny Boy basically walked into melee range of Zed, invited him to come in, and they lost both fights and potentially going to lose the Baron here, basically of all of their own volition.
I mean, that's the big thing here is Chiefs are onto the Baron and look to take it. Huey's not even going to walk into the vicinity and trying to humor them with a smite. Instead, it will go down to Chiefs, and this game is flipping back and forth. We felt like Rich Gang had so much control, but let's see that again.
So basically, Zed gets an initiation onto Chenny Boy. Even though he has the Zhonya's available, Chenny Boy's basically out of this fight. They kill Swiffer, but the big issue is that all at the same time, Day Shift is dead, and Leona Corki are going to rotate. So much synergy between those two. Very tanky members on Rich Gang, but with Chenny Boy chunked out, it's a 2 damage comp basically. Mundo does a lot of damage. If he's got another threat to kind of bluff intent, there's no other threats, and Radio will clean up this fight. And Rich Gang, it's kind of a rookie mistake. It's one of those issues. If you're against an experienced team, you come in, you pick for late game, and then you just make these positional mistakes. You let your wards lapse. You don't have the correct pink ward lineup matchup. Even if you've got all the momentum in the world and the compositional advantage, you can still lose a competitive game of League of Legends.
Oh, absolutely. And we talk about, you know, Rich Gang having such a good comp 5v5 versus the Chiefs. The Chiefs just were able to find basically two different skirmishes. You're going to obviously win the 2v1 against Kalista, but that 3v3 looked fine for Chiefs as well. If they can split up Rich Gang, and Rich Gang should not have been separated, then that's a very easy fight for Chiefs to win.
Absolutely. It's a mistake by Rich Gang. They need to double down their wards. They still haven't. You can see their side of the jungle still fairly underward. They're getting a couple of wards in, a very defensive pink ward around the Raptors, but they cannot let that repeat because with long death timers, with 43 minutes in, we're getting closer and closer to the late game. One small mistake, doesn't matter what comp you have, you'll be punished for it.
Yeah, and looks like Raider as well, trying to bust through Squiggle. I mean, Corki's tank busting, not great here, but he's doing pretty much everything he can, I feel like, to try and kill the Mundo.
Yeah, he's got the burst from the Infinity Edge, now kind of the consistent damage, kind of the Blade of the Ruin King. So much armor that, of course, that 3, 4, 5% damage coming out of the Blade of the Ruin King, only going to be tickling Dr. Mundo, but it's the thought that counts. He's working towards doing damage to this tanky Mundo.
Yeah, has the last burst before there as well. Swiffer actually might fancy his chance. He's got a pickaxe in his inventory. I wonder what item Swiffer's looking to pick up. Maybe a more of Malmortius?
Maybe the Tiamat into Hydra. I guess more AoE damage, more lifesteal coming out, I think will be the way to go. I think he realizes he has to team fight. There's no hope of split pushing against this Dr. Mundo.
Yeah, we'll have to see. Swiffer actually banking quite a lot of gold, but Rosie has already gone in. The rest of Rich Gang going to go in, and Swiffer going to ult in onto Huey, actually. They might just try and take him out. The good Monsoon that puts Swiper in a very awkward spot, but he's going to keep tanking now. Squiggle going to take so much damage. It's a tank battle hit. Chenny Boy almost going to go down, but Squiggle will follow, and Chiefs are going to fight 4v4. Squiggle takes so long to die, but Swiffer going to try and dodge the last few bolts of the ulti. A good ob there, but Radio immediately kills it, and Swiffer, he'll take it. It's 4v4 now.
And credit to the Chiefs. We keep talking about these 5v fights in the open. They're never happening because Chiefs are forcing skirmishes in the jungle in awkward terrain. Even though Squiggle lasted longer, it didn't matter. Both super tanks were out of position. Both of them died. And then the resulting 4v4, basically anything can happen. So credit to Chiefs, understanding where they need to fight. But again, it was a face check from Chenny Boy this time, catching the Leona when he was going for a ward. He doesn't need to be warding. There's someone tankier with enough disengage to be warding instead of him.
And looks like it is warded there. Huey will spot a ward there with Raptor Sense, and Chiefs, unfortunately, both the Dragon spawning in 10 seconds was sitting on top of ward. Swiffer, the only one with his sweeper off cooldown at the time. He's gone back. He actually is going to go for the more, it seems like. And Dragon is up in 3 seconds. We're going to have a bloodbath.
But at the same time, a massive minion wave has already pushed down the inner turret in top. It is going to get significant damage on the inhibitor turret. If they do not show up from this with the Dragon or back away now, they're going to lose massive global objectives here, Rich Gang.
Yeah, remember, this is the 5th Dragon for Rich Gang as well, so they have to be very careful. Huey is positioning himself for a steal. Doesn't quite get the fadeaway, and Chiefs get a key third. Dragon Swiper is actually teleported in there trying to cancel some backs, but Chiefs can't quite get enough done, and they'll just take the Dragon and leave.
Yeah, thankfully for Rich Gang, they did not eat a lot of damage on the inner turret in the top lane. Mundo was able to get there. They went for the steal. They weren't willing to commit to a fight, so Huey went for the steal. Chiefs had pulled it out enough. 3 Dragons to 4. So much to talk about, but still one kind of big fight, one tipping point until this match is resolved.
Yeah, I mean, The death times are getting so late here. It's almost 46 minutes into this game. Most of the carriers have 4 items complete there. You can see Kalista, BT, Blade, Last Whisper, and the QSS done, plus the Hurricane there. So pretty much 6 slotted there on that Kalista. Rady there as well. We talked about his 4 items. And Swiffer just done with his more. There are lots of big damage carriers and lots of big tanks on this team. And at this point, despite the good comp there for Rich Gang, if those engages keep happening the way they are, Chiefs are going to have a field day.
It's just small mistakes. It's Chenny Boy being the one to ward the nearest brush to the base and finding a Leona. That doesn't need to happen. Of course, you should be warding with every champion, but you need to choose the safest options for your artillery, your long-range, high-damage people. There are other people to be checking vision, and they're getting preyed upon in these small situations. Day Shifter being caught out in bot, Chenny Boy being too far up in the mid lane, and then again at the very close to the inner turret. It's just Rich Gang making small mistakes, but you can't make small mistakes against this practiced, settled lineup of the Chiefs. They've been around, they've been in long games, they've done this all before, and their experience might be enough to pull them up from what was a really wonky mid game from the Chiefs.
Yeah, I mean, the Chiefs might have to be careful here as well. Swift's actually down the bottom lane, split pushing. Couldn't do anything to Squiggle, basically. That Sunfire kept being done. Means that Mundo's split push pressure is actually quite strong here, but Chiefs instead will get some vision around the Baron now. It's back in a minute 30, and that's a lot of ward vision that's going to be battled by both teams.
Yeah, but Squiggle can answer the split push. It basically ends split push duties for Swiffer. He's gone back. He's finished the more Memodius, as you mentioned, so hasn't gone towards a Tiamat or another super high lifesteal or AoE damage item for team fights. It makes him more survivable, but not as many aggressive options in a team fight. And they have to answer this Squiggle split push, but Rich Gang, they're holding back. I think the next Baron is a minute away. That's probably the next big contest point for this game.
Scimitar's done for Day Shifted there as well. So Kalista is at full strength right now. You can tell the Chiefs respect her. Both the top laner and the support have picked up Frozen Hearts this game. In fact, Swiper now has a Thornmail as well.
Yeah, Swiper's very, very tanky. Tank busting is not Day Shifted's best ability. He hasn't got an Infinity Edge to even hope to do that. So, I mean, maybe this front line is now tanky enough to deal with Day Shifter, so a lot will rely on Chenny Boy. He's got that Void stuff. He'll be doing big damage. Look at Spooks. Gets bursted to half health with just one rotation from Chenny Boy.
Yeah, I mean, Chenny looking scary now as well. You can tell why Spooks wanted to make sure he had the Aegis, and the more makes sense for Swiffer there as well. So Chiefs going to stay grouped here, but again, these aren't the fights that they can realistically win. Swiper, though, can't really apply pressure in another lane because he doesn't have his teleport up. That's all in Squiggle's hands right now. So the Baron's going to be up in 10 seconds, and both teams are going to be looking for a fight.
Yeah, the side waves are perhaps the most interesting thing across the map until the Baron spawns. See, Day Shift is going to start to push out that top wave. Gives Chiefs a chance to engage, but probably not going to see Jarvan go too far in with a Cataclysm right now.
Yeah, pretty aggressive posturing here for Chiefs to clear out some wards. Going to get both of them here as well. The Sentinel's actually going to provide a bit of extra vision, but Rich Gang will repay in kind there and sweep out wards, learn, replace the ones that they put down. Remember, this is double Sightstone here as well for both junglers, so there's a lot of wards that they can kind of burn through to make sure they have vision.
Chenny Boy, importantly, does not have blue buff. It's been well denied by the Chiefs previously, but we might see a fight.
They are going to go into the swipe. They're going to dive straight in on top of Chenny Boy. He's getting so low. The Locket's going to be forced above, but Spooks jumps in onto Day Shift, and Rosie dives in there as well. Chenny pops his own, and Swivers in the back. Swiper gets the first kill. Destiny going to get low. Day Shift is going to go down there as well, and the Chiefs just massacring through the rest of Rich Gang. Spooks and Swiffer will get knocked up here, but they won't chase. Squiggle again, caught out 1v4. Just can't do anything. I mean, it's going to take him a while to die if he dies, but with the rest of the Chiefs falling, they'll get the kill. 3-0.
Wonderful target selection from the Chiefs. They take down Chenny Boy and Day Shifted instantly. Chenny Boy again caught in no man's land. No peel available from Destiny, so he died first. Day Shifted died in kind, and unfortunately, 2 threats, 2 dead. Chiefs are going to win this game.
Yeah, I mean, the death times are just so long right now. 40 seconds on the carries here for Rich Gang with Chenny Boy and Day Shift to come back up. A minute on Squiggle here, and the Chiefs, they've still got 5 strongers. They're going to push in and look for the victory. Huey can maybe try and peel them up, but these turrets melt so quickly, and Destiny and Huey just don't do any damage right now. Swiper going to go in. A good ulti there from Rosie, going to secure their kill. The Nexus going to fall here as well, and the Chiefs win a marathon 50-minute game against the Dr. Mundo.
I cannot believe they did it, but it was those small mistakes 40 minutes in. We were kind of looking in on Chiefs play at 28 minutes and saying they've missed their timing windows. But you'd have to say, to some degree, Rich Gang did as well. They were so far ahead. They were setting up for the 5th Dragon. They got 2 Barons. They just never managed to take down that mid turret that could have kind of changed the game. Picking up an inhibitor would have done so much work for them. But the Chiefs' credit and their target selection in fights was wonderful.
And that's almost twice now where we've kind of seen the Chiefs have a good early game, falter a little bit in the mid game, and then use that experience in team fighting to really back up and finally take the game.
So we'll watch a replay to get another one of these key team fights. I imagine this is going to be right at the end. Yeah, we'll roll the tape. But just watch the target selection. That's the word I use to describe this fight. But the people that die is so important. So Chenny Boy instantly Swiper gets on top of him. Chenny Boy is completely taken out of the fight. Even though he's Zonya's, you can see Swiffer, Rosie, Spooks all in the backline. And Day Shifted dies the AoE. Both hyper carries are dead. And there's just no damage left on this lineup. We talked about Mundo in the late game. He's so tanky. He lasts about another 30 seconds. Just walking around, slowly dying. But both his carries are dead. It's a 2-threat comp. And Chiefs win off this fight.
Yeah, I mean, it took a lot there. Again, the Mundo took so long to die, but we talk about it. Mundo, great in a 5v5, great when you were grouped. Not very good 1v4. Again, it takes a while, but you'll eventually kill him.
It just didn't feel like they got the purchase out of the peel. They had Janna and Lee Sin. You'd think there'd be enough disengage there, but they managed to engage onto Chenny Boy, change target onto Day Shifted, kill both of the hyper carries. It's easy to win the game from there.
And you know what? A good performance there by Rich Gang. I feel that's a very strong showing. They picking the Kalista comp into a team like Chiefs who are clearly going for you in the mid game with their draft. Admirable stuff, but just a couple tweaks here and there on Chiefs. Experience really showing through there.
I think you have to give them a lot of credit because they picked for the late game. We've seen a few teams do that. They did it successfully. They got to the late game. They got to their item timings. They just couldn't translate all that excellent work, that first 35 minutes. They just kind of let it all go away at the end.
Well, the Chiefs going to have to grab the water waters and recover after that marathon because they're going to play Avant right after this quick break.